First of all, we are here at SFU, beautiful campus. I'm super happy to be here. Simon Fraser University, this is where I did my graduate studies. Thank you, Simon Fraser. It was a beautiful experience right on top of this beautiful mountain overlooking a cove. One of the major difficulties that humans are facing is that we judge some of our emotions. We're not okay with some of the things that we feel. And what helps for people to accept their emotions more is if they understand a little bit about how the nervous system works. So a general idea about the nervous system is that there's two basic modes. One mode is safety. So on this side of the line, you have safety. And safety is what we always strive to restore. So every organism tries to restore safety. Why? Well, because in safety we can do a lot of good things. In safety we rest. In safety we can connect with others. In safety we can communicate and create these cooperative systems. We can cooperate and grow stronger together. In safety we sleep well, our bodies rest and recover. If you sleep well, you have, your cells regenerate. So safety is a state that we always try to go back to. But of course, safety is not given. So then on the other side of the line is when safety is violated, the organism goes into defense. And when you go into defense, it's a completely different set of chemistry, right? Completely different set of chemistry. And so let's say you're threatened and you're not feeling safe. The first system that gets activated is the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. Fight or flight is a really powerful, robust system. It's a good system. It's one that gives us energy, gives us strength, gives us like perceptual acuity, everything works better. Our minds work better. We are faster, we are stronger. It's an expensive system, so we can spend a lot of energy if we in that state for too long, but being in that state for a bit is pretty good. The best thing about the sympathetic nervous system is that you are in control. So you can fight, you can flee, you can hide. You are in control of your own body and of the situation. So that's always the first system that gets activated. However, if the fight or flight system fails, then the next system that gets activated. So essentially, how does it fail? It fails because you actually lose control. The cat catches the mouse. And what does the mouse do? The mouse goes dead immediately. The mouse doesn't decide to do it. The mouse does it because that's the evolutionary kind of defensive system that it activates. Going dead actually in this case gives the mouse way better chances of survival than fighting. Because sometimes when the mouse goes dead, the cat will actually drop the mouse, and then the mouse has a tiny chance to escape. In any case, that system, it's the shutdown system. It's the system that creates all kinds of problems. This is the oldest evolutionary system. It's a reptilian system. It's a freeze system, shutdown system. People in that state dissociate. People in that state get completely drained of life. They feel dead. Very deep depression can happen. If you want to understand how humans work, the avoidance of shutdown, the avoidance of emotional collapse is one of the most powerful mechanisms you have because it feels so horrible. You don't feel alive. There's no meaning. You might be dissociated and numb. You might be completely drained of life energy. So this is not something that we want to go to, but it is a useful system. It's an evolutionary system. So you have the dorsal parasympathetic, the oldest reptilian system. You have the sympathetic nervous system, which is the power, fight, flight. This is the first system in our nervous system, the first defense system. And it's a very good system because we're in control, yeah? And then on the other side of the line, we always try to restore safety. We'll always try to go back to safety. So now what happens, why is this important? Is because What happens in trauma is that these systems get out of whack. When you have an early trauma, the worst trauma comes with this kind of collapse, where the dissociation happens and where you feel, because children naturally are helpless, they don't have control over these situations, they can't save themselves. Cognitively, they can't save themselves. Physically, so they often feel very helpless, and helplessness is one of the worst things you can feel. Losing control over your life is one of the worst things you can feel. So if you have this dorsal parasympathetic system overactivated, it causes trouble for you. It causes trouble in relationships, for example, because let's say you have a regular argument, and if you're a highly traumatized person, you can't handle conflict, because the conflict will send you right back into your original childhood trauma, and then you will, this system is overactive and it gets triggered way too fast, and you collapse and you withdraw, and that's the end of the argument. You can't actually engage anymore. You're dead. You're not there. Some other people, this is lesser trauma, have the sympathetic nervous system overactivated. So they are much more prone to, let's say, anger and fight. So this is not as bad, but it's very costly, because if you live in a state of constant hypervigilance, that's what it is, hypervigilance, that you just read the environment as full of cues of danger. That is a very costly, just chemically, the organism just can't produce enough of these chemicals to keep you in that state. So you risk depletion, you risk eventual depression just because you literally physically depleted. And also then, in terms of relational functioning, an overactive sympathetic system will make you might make you jump to fight or to flight too fast. And of course that causes problems, because you might be too aggressive. You might not be able to listen to the other person or all that. In any case, this is a complicated story, but what's good to know is that the bottom line here is that we don't have control over these responses, that our emotions happen to us through this body, through this biology that has been shaped by a long evolutionary history, and then it just happens to you. So once you understand that your collapse is not a voluntary response that you have, your collapse comes because you were traumatized earlier on in your life, and your collapse system is too active, and then in this relationship, any threat to you might cause that collapse, and you can't do anything about it. Same with the sympathetic system. Your anger, you might just be prone to anger, overactive anger. And if that happens, that's not a problem. And the collapse is not a problem. It's just a part of who you are. And we are not here to change those reactions. We are here to become aware of these reactions, because we know how to deal with these reactions.